actual regular standard male, that nothing's wrong with him, has over 70% of masculinity in him. And the actual standard female has over 70% of femininity in her. But I think a lot of times when we talk about masculinity and femininity, we're associating it with gender behavior. And that's the issue, because masculinity by definition is defined as doing. So if you're saying that you don't want masculinity in a woman, technically I would dispute that, because a lot of men want that woman to be active. You want her to work out. That's masculinity. But when you're talking about emotions, that actually is femininity. If femininity is described as nurturing, comparing, compassion, things like that, that's literally in the definition. I'm not making this up. So when you're saying crying, crying is an emotion, crying is femininity. When you're saying anger, anger is an emotion, anger is femininity. So emotion, empathy is described under the umbrella of femininity. But again, it is how you channel it, because a person who is utilizing that emotion and then they start acting on it. For instance, anger. Once you start becoming physical, now you transition that into masculinity. And so I think when we have this conversation, we try to identify it with a gender, because femininity is associated with female, and then masculinity is associated with male, and we have perpetuated ideas of what a masculine man look like. And 50 Cent and Tay Diggs are both heterosexual black men, but you get two different ideas of masculinity with them. Two completely different ideas. So
yeah, Tay Diggs especially is fruity as hell. Yeah, I agree.
He's a heterosexual black man. So regardless of
fruity.
the fact that you may not like how he handles himself or carries himself well, or if you look at the character that played Kyle on Living Single versus the character that played Overton, those are two heterosexual black men, but people would assume that Kyle had a lot more femininity in him than Overton did, but neither one of those men necessarily lacked masculinity. So I think in this conversation that we take these ideas and we apply them and try to denote them down to gender roles, when in actuality, I don't need a balance of masculinity in order to act in my femininity or my womanhood. At times, I do need to exude masculinity due to whatever situational scenario. However, I always want to encompass femininity, because that is who I am at my nature, at my core.
Hey, what is living single? I'm a millennial, so I don't know. What is that?
That was a show we had Queen
Lateef. What you talking about?
Bullshit, man.
Yeah, I know he's joking.
I'm a millennial. I don't know what talk about. I'm too young to
You old. Stop.
Hey, go ahead, Lady Di.
I was gonna ask Paris 2 questions. So you said working out is masculine. Can you explain that? And then the second question is, you said about I lost. Hold on, I forgot. But can you explain the workout part? You said that's masculine.
The act of masculinity is doing. So lifting, physical fitness, those things are characterized as masculinity, because anytime you're actually acting, anytime you're in some type of physicality that could be seen as dominance or aggression, that would be considered masculinity.
So then that means women shouldn't play sports then?
No,
right?
I didn't say that. I said I would counteract men saying that they don't want a woman to behave masculine, but a lot of men like their women to be physically fit and shape. It actually shows that if a woman is physically fit and shape, her child has greater chances of being active, and it actually helps increase children being more athletic and more healthy if a woman is active as opposed to the father. So I'm just saying that when we're saying women shouldn't act masculine or men shouldn't act feminine, empathy is a feeling of femininity. I do want a man to be feminine. I do want a man to be nurturing. That is a feeling of femininity that is under the umbrella. We can't make men nurturers and then call it masculinity, because by definition it don't apply. You're acting in feminine. I just don't want you to have more femininity than me, or I don't need it balanced. I need you to have the normal standard of what is automatically applied in a biological male. That's it.
I get that point, but I'm trying to get.
I don't think she's saying don't work out though. I don't think she's saying that.
Nurturing is So nurturing for a man is still in his masculinity. It's just he's doing it in his masculinity. It's not that he's feminine.
By definition, that's not true.
But see, that's what I'm saying. This definition, I feel like that's why so many men now need therapy, because I'm thinking about our boys now, how they suppress these things because they don't feel like, oh, if I express this to my dad, he might think so I just feel like a lot with this definition, a lot of men now today, it didn't work. Them suppressing these things didn't work. That's why we talking about half of these things now, because I don't feel like that's feminine. I still feel like that's masculine. I still feel like a man expressing himself is masculine.
Communication has no energy, right? So communication is not necessarily masculine or feminine. When you're talking about feminine energy, and I'm saying nurturing is under the umbrella of feminine energy. The natural man, the regular standard biological male, has 30% or less feminine energy. You can look it up.
So you saying like a single dad, like a widow, like a widow dad. He had to get some type of energy to.
Hold on, y'all. We got to get Chanel in there. Before we start going back around for the second time. Let's get Chanel in there.
I don't mind hearing the rest of their conversation.
I got you, Ali.
I don't mind hearing the rest of their conversation, but I'm just gonna add, passiveness is normally linked with feminine energy, and being direct is normally linked with masculine energy. I think both passivity and being direct can be applied in different situations, and I think we're all reasonable enough to know which situations we can use both things in. We don't have to overcomplicate these things. We can use what's been happening many years ago to see what femininity is and to see what masculinity is. I do agree with Paris. There's 30% estrogen in men and there's 30% testosterone in women. So it's already balanced within our own bodies just as much as we need. So that's just my opinion.
So technically, is eating ass masculine or feminine?
Masculine. You're doing something.
Would you just take these things seriously? These are great conversations we can have. Please.
I just want to ask a question.
Go ahead, Ali.
The little princess is
So this is how the Western world has created identity issues amongst men and women, and this is why the LGBT community is going to continue to grow and thrive, and why everybody's going to struggle with being a man and woman. I believe these terms were created to emasculate men more so than the women, and it made women want to be more masculine. That's why a woman's fighting to be a man, and a man's fighting to kind of be a woman. I ain't gonna say they're fighting as much to be a woman, but they're not valuing a woman as much, and they're fine without being a woman at times. But when we're looking at the way that the country has went and the way things have been implemented in globally, they are trying to get rid of men. They're trying to completely get rid of masculinity. Once you get rid of masculinity, then you can get rid of femininity and forget those energies. Let me stop doing that because I hate playing with these words. This is what's happened to us anyway. You destroy a man, you can destroy the woman. And once you destroy the man and woman, you destroy the children and you destroy the family. The main goal they're trying to do is make us fight with these words when we know to the skin, to the hair, to the bone, to your pelvic area, you're a woman. There's nothing about you that's masculine. There's nothing about me that's feminine. We have traits that are similar that can say that we share. When I show empathy, that doesn't make me feminine. When you show strength and endurance and resilience, that doesn't make you masculine. We just have certain traits that can look similar. Just say these are traits that we share. But there's nothing I can do to be a woman. There's nothing you can do to be a man. It's straight manhood and there's woman. And I believe they throw this out to people so we're confused and we sit here fighting over who's feminine, who's masculine. But I'm gonna tell you this, men are meant to lead and women are meant to follow. And we know this, if we came up to JR, we started telling them how to run a show, this whole show was shut down. Men are supposed to be in leadership positions. Women are supposed to be helping that man and sustain the household. And we know this because if a man shows emotion, let's say I use Precious, for example. A lot of women go, stop acting like a bitch and you stop being so sensitive. If I try to communicate with Precious, she'll go, Ali, stop raising your voice. If I use intelligence and leadership, a lot of today's women go, hey, you trying to be controlling. So Once you start negotiating with a woman a little bit and make her think that y'all 50-50 and y'all equal in partners, you already lost the family, because that person is going to tell you that they need a leader. But as soon as you start negotiating with her, she feel like you're not sufficient enough and you can't lead her. So men lead. We need to go back to gender roles, starting from the school, from the infrastructure of schools, teaching what a man is, what a woman is, and everybody gets in line like Paris was talking about a while ago. We need to create men and women. We need to know what our roles are, and then we need to have families that thrive.